Hello and welcome to iHeart Cooking. I'm registered dietitian Jennifer Stachler.
And I'm Chef Dugan Wetzel.
We are from Reid Health. Today's program is brought to you by Reid Health, Community Benefits, RPNL, and WCTV. Today on iHeart Cooking, we're learning about plant proteins. iHeart Cooking, we're working with plant-based proteins. So again, we're eliminating a lot of those animal meats and getting some protein from some of our plants. The two that we're really going to focus on, or a couple of them actually, is we're going to be working with quinoa. We're going to be working with tempeh. And I can never get that right, so I apologize if I do screw that up throughout the program. And the last one we're going to be working on is going to be with tofu.
Yep.
So very common plant-based proteins, things that add a lot of great nutrition to get you that protein, not only if you are wanting to replace meat, but if you're vegetarian at the same time. So the very first recipe that we're actually going to be working on is a sesame, honey, tempeh, and quinoa bowl.
There you go.
So we got that tempeh and the quinoa together. So very interesting recipe. We got some slaw, we got some kind of honey tempeh, and we're going to kind of mix those all together. So we'll get started with that, and the first start is going to be cooking that quinoa, because that's going to take a while.
It's going to take about 20 minutes, so we're going to go ahead. We've already got some water boiling. We're going to add about 3/4 cup of quinoa to it. We're going to get it up to a boil, and then once it's at a boil, we're going to turn it down to a simmer so it can kind of absorb some of that water and cook the rest of the way through.
One nice thing about quinoa, you'll see we kind of got the white colorish quinoa. You'll see that they have purple, they have red, they have a lot of different colors you can buy. They even now package it where you can get all three of them together and get a mixture of the colors. Quinoa, like I said, plant-based protein. One nice thing, it has all these 7 amino acids, which is the same amount that protein has, all the animal proteins. So it's complete protein, we call that. So you're getting a lot of nutrition. There is still carbohydrates and things like that also in this because it's plant-based. So unfortunately, if we're looking diabetes related, all of our plant-based proteins still have a high amount of carbohydrates there that you have to kind of still consider for that. So we'll let that get boiling and we'll start working on our slaw as well.
I just say this is going to take a little bit of time, so what's nice about it is you can knock out the rest of these steps and kind of bring it all together in the end. So yeah, like Jennifer said, we're going to start on our carrot slaw. We're actually using a shredded carrot. Just going to go ahead and add that to our bowl. This dish here is actually going to have kind of an Asian feel to it. We're using toasted sesame seeds. You can find those in a store or you can do it yourself at home. Doesn't take any time at all because they're sesame seeds. They're really tiny, just real fast. We're using sesame oil, we're using rice vinegar, using soy sauce. So if you're a fan of Asian cuisine, this is probably going to be right up your alley here. So we've got our carrots here. We're just going to slowly add our rice vinegar. Going to add our sesame seeds. Sesame oil. Now you don't need a lot of sesame oil because it is so strong. I mean, it is a very powerful flavor.
It is.
So it's maybe a teaspoon max is all you're going to need. And a little bit of soy sauce.
And we are using a low sodium soy sauce. That's something that soy sauce is known to have a lot of sodium in there, a lot of salt aspect. So you can buy the low sodium versions, which kind of cuts back on that.
So I put a glove on here. I'm just gonna toss it, kind of incorporate the carrot and all of those flavors, let it sit and kind of marinate in the soy sauce, and the toasted sesames. It's got a nice aroma to it, really.
Absolutely.
I love this flavor.
very colorful too, and that's one nice thing about using the carrots in this dish. It's going to add a lot of color to it because a lot of the quinoa, the tempeh that doesn't have much color. It's very blah, for instance. So
absolutely.
the carrots are going to give you that punch of color.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're going to let that sit there. Next thing we're actually going to do is start cooking our tempeh. Jen's got it here. It's
You'll kind of see it's still in the package, but when you buy the tempeh, a lot of tempeh, you're going to find it mostly in health food stores.
Yeah.
You can find it in Kroger. A lot of times other places might not have it, so you might have to be able to look around, but it actually comes in kind of a pre-sealed package like this. It is actually going to be found next to a lot of your tofus, kind of dairy kind of section off in a cooler refrigerator section. Tempeh is actually made in Indonesia. It's where it originated, and it actually started originating back in about the 1700s, and they even believe it was even being originated sooner to that. But it's a fermented soybean.
Yeah,
is what it is.
It's made the same way tofu is. It just has it's compressed into a block, and then it uses a fungus. Now, fungus, you'd think that's wrong, and you shouldn't be eating funguses, but actually mushrooms are a fungus. So that is what is on the outside of this compressed soybean block, which makes it tempeh. So exactly the same thing. If you like tofu, you're probably going to like this too, so you should give it a try. And you said when you were looking for it, there's a bunch of different flavors.
There is different flavors. They have the original, which we have here. They have one that's made, I believe, with flaxseed. They have another one that has the herb flavor. So they actually had a large variety of them in different flavors. A lot of times when I hear people saying they cook this and try it, they do get that kind of mushroom taste to it when they actually are cooking or trying this. And then, of course, you get that tofu kind of soybean aspect there too.
The one difference that I can tell you if you're looking for tempeh, you're going to notice on the inside of it, whereas tofu, it gets blended and mixed together before it gets compressed. There's soybeans, you'll still see them inside here. So it's not completely broken down and then compressed. They kind of allow them to keep their shape. So you've got that texture contrast in there as well. So.
And like the quinoa that has the protein aspect for the plants, the tempeh, it's soybean based, it's adding the protein as well. So another component in place of any type of meats that you might want to switch out. And having that, you're less saturated fats, which that's found in all of our meat products, our dairy products. You're not going to find that in your plant-based products, and that's something we recommend about 12 to 15 grams of those per day. And so this is a great way to kind of take out some of the meat and put some of these things in.
So we're just going to crumble it. Got one more block here to do. And then what we're going to do is heat up another pan, put a little bit of oil in there, and start to brown it off. So when we get back here, we'll be ready to go. And heated our toasted sesame oil here.
And that's something, you do get that strong flavor from that
very fragrant
oil.
We're just going to add our tempeh, and we're going to cook it maybe 7 to 9 minutes. What we're really looking for is a nice brown color to it, nice toasted, if we're going to use that word, flavor. So just kind of stir it up. Let it sit there, and we'll just keep an eye on it.
It'll take about anywhere from 7 to 9 minutes, depending on the heat source and how high of heat you have. I'd say medium-high for this to kind of let that cook. You don't want it to burn or anything like that, but you're definitely going to get that nice flavor from both the oil, and then also a lot of that soybean flavor comes out with that.
Absolutely. So what we're going to do while the tempeh is cooking here is we're going to make our almost like a sauce mixture for it. Very easy. Low sodium soy sauce. We're going to put a little bit of cornstarch in there, kind of help thicken it up. And then to help thicken it up even more, we're going to add some honey.
That's going to add that sweetness to this dish, because that's something that the flavors, I mean, there's definitely flavors there with the sesame seed and the oils and the soy sauce, but that's going to add that sweetness to it to kind of contradict the other flavors.
Yeah, it'll definitely help. You can hear that tempeh's starting to cook. It's gonna absorb that flavor from the sesame oil, and it's gonna turn out really nice, I think. So
Absolutely.
whisk this together real fast. And by the time we're done here with this this sauce, our quinoa is almost completely cooked through. Our tempeh is almost done, and then it's just going to be time to assemble everything. So
Absolutely.
if you've got good time management skills, it's very easy to get this done. There's a lot of steps to it.
There is.
And it can seem kind of intimidating because it's got a lot of different
Steps,
ingredients,
yeah,
steps, but it's
and dishes. You'll
very
see we
easy.
have all kind of dishes, 4 of them here.
Yeah.
But that's something like Dugan says, if you have everything ready to go, you have all the ingredients there, this is a dish that will take 30 minutes or less to make.
Absolutely.
Cleaning up might take a little longer, but
Yeah.
we're not including that into the cooking time.
All right, so we're ready. I'm just gonna stir this a little bit more. Starting to smell that soybean.
Yes.
It's starting to make an appearance here. Check on our quinoa. It's almost completely absorbed, which means we're about ready to go.
About ready to plate. All right, we have everything cooked through. The quinoa's done, the tempeh is done. So now we're just basically going to make the dish, and it's very easy. So last step, we're gonna add that honey mixture to the dish.
To the tempeh, yeah, we're gonna just kind of, it's going to evaporate rather quickly, so we're just gonna stir to incorporate. It's gonna absorb into that soybean, the tempeh, and then we'll be ready to go.
And you can smell that as kind of honey,
The soy,
kind of soy
sauce, yeah.
kind of smell to that.
Okay.
And when you make this recipe, it basically says take 2 bowls and kind of add a little bit of each to the bowl. So you're thinking again, a lot of Asian dishes, you find them in bowls. We're going the same route here with the kind of taste for this.
Absolutely. Just gonna go ahead. Yeah, that's fine. Just gonna put a little bit of quinoa in there. Get some tempeh.
And if you're seeing this from home, you can see right now it's very bland. There's no color there at all. So this pop of slaw, carrot slaw, is going to add it for us.
Yeah, and then to top it off, we're gonna put on a couple scallions, green onions, chives, whatever you have to give it that contrast and color here.
So there adds a lot of that color in there. You get a lot of, very similar to a lot of Asian dishes that you're seeing
absolutely.
here. So we'll get some forks out and we'll give it a try. Kind of give this a try, see what it tastes like, kind of get a little bit of everything if you can. Kind of with some of the past kind of, if I can get them all on here, you want a little bit of the tempeh, you want some of the carrots and the quinoa. That tempeh and the quinoa is going to have more of a softer flavor, so the carrot's going to add that crunch again for you if you like that. Very good dish. Very soft in there with the, like I mentioned before, the tempeh and the quinoa. Carrots add that crunch. Not a lot of the sweetness from the honey, but more of that soy sauce kind of flavor there for you.
Sesame, the toasted sesame oil is one that's coming out to me, so it's very
Absolutely.
very neutral flavor here.
And that's something, if you're used to a very low sodium diet, even with the soy sauce in here, you're probably going to think this tastes a little bit salty, but unfortunately because of what we use, we didn't add salt to it. We use low sodium soy sauce. This is a very lower sodium kind of Asian dish that you can make to make it a little bit more heart healthy, even though some of you who are used to that are going to think it's probably maybe got a little bit hit of salt there.
Sure.
So, but very quick, easy dish. Don't be intimidated, like Dugan said, with all the steps and all the dishes. But we'll get this cleaned up and we'll get started with coming back and talking about tofu. We got things cleared up from our previous dish, and we're going to get, like I said, into that tofu. So what we have for you today is a salsa tofu breakfast burrito. So we're going from like a dinner kind of dish to a breakfast dish, something that's going to be very quick and easy. But again, it's adding that tofu, which is going to be that plant-based protein.
Absolutely.
Which I believe that's what Dugan's trying to get into here.
Yep, absolutely. We're using an extra firm tofu, so we're just going to cut it out of the box.
And you will see there are variety of different types of tofu that you can find. They have the soft, they have the firm, and it kind of depends on the dish that you're making. Because this dish is going to be more like, tofu is going to be our meat source, kind of what we're doing is exchanging it out. It's going to be more of that firmness that you're not going to really kind of blend with other things. Because there's many of them that you can put into and kind of blend together where it's more smooth and not so hard for you, I guess.
This is, we're using heat. We're going to cook this on the pan, in a pan on the stovetop. So you want to use a firmer one that's going to hold up to that.
Absolutely.
Whereas if you use like a softer tofu, it's just going to smear and kind of come together and blend into everything. So you still want this to have some chunk to it, some texture. So you want to use the extra firm. You're going to notice there's a little bit of liquid in there. That's to keep it from getting too hard. It's just going to keep it soft, even though it's an extra firm tofu. So pull it out of the box here. Rinse my hand off.
And like tofu, and we had the tempeh, we've had the miso, we've had some other things here in this episode and previous episodes. It's just another kind of soybean based. It's just made a different way for you.
Yep. This is just the previous one when we talked about tempeh was still kind of whole pieces in there, whereas this is a blended and then compressed into a block. So very much the same thing. It's just missing the fungus aspect.
Absolutely. And this is a more common kind of plant-based proteins. Many people know what tofu is. It's been around for a while, where that tempeh is something that's being just introduced recently. I mean, we haven't heard a lot of it, and now it's being seen on a lot of Food Network channels or cooking shows that you watch. You're seeing it in grocery stores and things like that. So something to experiment with.
So I'm just going to kind of cut it up here into small chunks. That way it's easier to kind of toss around and eat when you put it into the burrito. Be done here in a second. Then we're going to go ahead, and if you want, you can turn it on, and we'll put the oil in to start heating up. Tofu is always interested me. It's got a nice, it's got a different appearance to it. It's very smooth and shiny. A lot of people shy away from it because they're afraid of what it is, and it's texture, but it's really not bad at all. I would always recommend people at least trying it before making your judgment.
The nice thing about this, I mean, the tempeh we made in the previous dish, it kind of had the taste to it. You can taste some of the soybean aspect to it, but one thing about tofu is it adapts a lot of the flavors of what you're cooking with. Probably just more because it's, like Dugan said, it's more ground up, compacted together. You don't have the whole bean aspect or part of the bean aspect there, that it's just going to kind of absorb those flavors.
Okay. So we're ready. We're just going to kind of let that oil heat up. We're using an extra virgin olive oil here, kind of give it that added flavor. If you've cooked with extra virgin olive oil before, you're going to know when it starts getting hot, it's going to start smelling. It's going to give you that oil, the olive oil flavor that you're so used to, and it'll actually help with this tofu because, like you said, it doesn't have a ton of flavor. It's going to soak up all that olive oil flavor. So always a good oil to use here.
And that's something I personally cook with a lot of extra virgin olive oil, especially when I'm cooking things, just because, like Dugan says, it adds the flavor there to it. If I'm making something like a salad dressing or things like that, I use a lighter kind of olive oil too. So there is kind of a difference when you're looking at olive oils on the shelf. Nice thing about it is most of the olive oils, they actually tell you on the front of the label what it's good for. And that's something that's just going to help you out kind of choosing which one is appropriate for what dish you're making.
So I'm going to use some of this water here that's actually running off to check and see if we're hot enough. And you can hear it starting to sizzle. That means we're ready to go. So next step, we're just going to add all this tofu into this pan. We're just going to saute it until it gets kind of a nice brown texture to it.
So basically, same step you'd be doing with a lot of meats that you'd make if you make burritos with any kind of ground meats. Same step, just with tofu.
Absolutely. So we'll just let that go. This isn't going to take very long because it is a lot of liquid. So it's just going to heat right up. It's going to brown really quick, 2 to 4 minutes probably max, and you'll be ready to go.
So we're still waiting on this tofu to kind of cook here. One thing you can do, because Dugan kind of mentioned all of that water that came out with the package when he took the tofu out, to kind of speed up the process of the cooking if you are in a hurry, one suggestion is kind of laying out your tofu, taking a napkin, putting it kind of over that tofu, put something hard on top of it, and just let it sit. What that's actually going to do is it's going to compress down onto that tofu, drawing out any of that excess water that you have there, which is going to quicken up the cooking process when you're here. Because if you think about having all that water in here, it's going to take a lot longer for it to cook.
Higher heats, you're absolutely.
So you'll see that actually many recipes say to do that. Some of the firmer tofus, you don't really see it in the recipes, but more of the medium, the very soft tofus, they'll actually have you do this process. That way you can kind of get rid of any of that moisture as much as you can. So we'll let that sit there for a little bit, and we'll kind of show you what that looks like with the napkin when we take it off.
So we're about there. I just want to show you real quick, since we were using the hard tofu, the extra firm tofu, you can see it held its shape really well. Now you've got some breaking up, some crumbling there, but that's perfectly fine. It's exactly what ground beef is. So you're fine. You've got some nice chunks to give it contrast and textures here when you're making it. So we're going to go ahead and turn our heat off. We're going to assemble our burrito here. First thing we're going to do, we're using a Monterey Jack cheese. Just going to put it right down the middle. Very easy. A couple ways you can do this. Next step, you can add the pepper and the salsa into the tofu and kind of mix it up. That's probably how I would like to do it, but if at home you're not a huge fan of salsa, you can kind of limit however much you want to put in there, or pepper even. I know some people don't use too much pepper, so you can just kind of sprinkle it, or you can omit it, whatever you want to do. So for this recipe, I'm just gonna add it all together and kind of show you what it's gonna look like if you do it that way.
That's something, if you kind of do like that salsa, you're getting more of that Southwest Tex kind of feel to it. You can definitely add more of that. That's something you commonly see with some breakfast burritos that you have. And again, like Dugan said, as much pepper as you want. We're omitting any sodium out of there. Most of the sodium that you are getting from the actual dish is going to be a lot of that cheese and things that you're getting that, and also the salsa.
Okay. Then to top it off, we're putting a little bit of green onion on there. Just give it an extra color.
Absolutely.
Roll it up, sample it, and we'll be done with this one as well.
We can kind of take a look, see what's happening with the tofu that we kind of pressed down. If I lift this up, you'll see that there's a lot of moisture into this napkin. You probably see a lot of moisture came out of it, and now it's a little bit more firmer. It doesn't have the water in there, so it's just a way to quicken up that process of cooking it when you put it in that skillet. So now we got this done. We're going to kind of give it a taste. That's something, again, remember that tofu is not going to have a lot of taste. Most of that's coming out of the salsa and the cheese and the pepper we're adding to that. To be honest, it tastes more like any breakfast burrito you'd have with meat, but just with tofu in it. Because again, that tofu is drawing that flavor out. It's very
same texture
soft.
as an egg. Yeah, it tastes exactly like an egg would. Not a ton of flavor, but you're going to get the rest of that flavor from everything else. It's got that chewiness that, you know, a scrambled egg would. So you're really, if you didn't know, you could think that this was an egg white burrito.
Oh, absolutely. I think if you would have served this to somebody and they didn't know what this was, they would have thought it was an egg.
Yeah.
With just no other meat, but that's something, you got that tofu, you got more of that protein in there. So great dish to have if you're trying to omit any kind of animal-based proteins out of there.
Absolutely.
So, thanks for tuning in to Heart Cooking. We hope you enjoyed all the information on plant-based proteins today.
For more heart healthy recipes, you can visit Reid Health's website at reidhealth.org/iHeartCooking.
We'll see you next month.